and a very, very good morning to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here at this event organized by the UNCDF in partnership with the Singapore FinTech Festival. I'm continuing on from our theme of building inclusive economies in digital era. I'm very privileged to be moderating this panel session on Islamic finance. Now, with the help of our distinguished panel of experts, specifically, we will be looking at the impact of COVID-19 on financial inclusion and how fintech and Islamic social instruments can help build a shock responsiveness in Islamic finance. Now, we are joined by 4 gentlemen for this session, all experts and knowledgeable in their respective fields. And it is a very diverse lineup in terms of experience. From the banking side, we have Mr. Yuzaidi Yusoff, an independent non-executive director of Bank Islam Malaysia with over 30 years of consulting and entrepreneurial experience in Asia. We also have our fintech guys. We have Umar Munshi, founder and CEO of Ethis, a pioneering group of Islamic crowdfunding platforms. We have Mr. Mohd Yuzaidi, the founder and CEO of CreditFix, who has over 24 years experience in the tech scene. And of course, we have Dr. Humayun Dar, the Director General at Cambridge Institute of Islamic Finance, an Islamic finance expert with over 2 decades of experience. So we're in really good hands today. I'd like to get the opinions of each panelist on how the Islamic finance industry has performed in the last year amid this pandemic. What are the key challenges that Islamic finance has faced, and how has COVID-19 sort of amplified these challenges? Perhaps if we could start with Mr. Yuzaidi, could you go first?
Yeah, thank you, Vani. A very good morning, good afternoon to some of you. Regards to COVID-19, the pandemic, I think one of the most very apparent outcome of this was we had to expedite many of the initiatives when it comes to social financing because of COVID-19. So that has made us more rigor in our approaches and expediting in terms of introducing new enhanced Islamic finance instruments to cater for the demands out there. So that's one of the main things that we actually experienced with COVID-19.
Mr. Yuzaidi, if I can go back to you. So I'm curious to know, in response to the challenges that all our colleagues have shared earlier, what are some of the meaningful or effective concrete measures taken by banks like Bank Islam and also stakeholders in response and in addressing these challenges?
Okay. See, the thing is, just to put some context into this, even before the pandemic, if you look at the statistics in the Department of Statistics Malaysia, our GDP per capita across the states are not even. They are not even. The average about 10,600 USD. And then some of the states are actually less than half of that. So, and we also realized that from the research from Khazanah, the absolute terms, in terms of income gap, it's widening by the year. 1970, for example, is about $785 more between the T20 and the P40. But 4 years ago, the difference is about 3,000 USD. So you could see that there is some issues in terms of inequality. So Bank Islam, we realized that yes, Islamic finance can and should play a bigger role in eliminating some of this poverty and reduce inequality. So back 3 or 4 years ago, we embarked on this Code 1 program, looking at how do we establish structured and well-governed, looking at philanthropy-based economy. Sadaqah, Wakaf, and Zakat. So we came up with some structures, scholars, Sharia experts, academicians. So everything was in place. Unfortunately, or fortunately, COVID-19 pandemic hit us big time. So our timeline that we were planning to do, everything went haywire. Milestones have to be brought forward. We had to reprioritize our serverings, our services, our offerings, and we had to introduce new ones. So Alhamdulillah, when the government of Malaysia announced the Air Tekat microfinancing program as part of its Prihatin economic stimulus package back in March, we were ready. So we know that we had the structure in place, framework in place, so we know we can do it. So we to sustain the economic productivity of the B40 micro entrepreneurs. So that's what we did. Yes, we had to balance between the lives and livelihoods. We went along with that. But at the board level, we realized that it's not enough. We have to do more things, and we have to do it fast. So some people actually look at traditional banks like us as being big, slow, and sluggish. So we improvised. So what we did was we sent out speedboats with motley crews on it. So we sent out people, our crew in Islamic social finance, crew on digital, crew on wealth management, and SME. So for example, in social finance, we actually had the team work very closely with a supervisory council and look at what other social finance instruments can we introduce now. Find out who are the NGOs out there who are experts on the field, and we know that we can work with them, and we call them the change makers. And of course, we partner with our government agencies and institutions. So together, we actually introduce and deploy our social finance instruments to the needy. On the digital side, so we actually look at, okay, how best can we reach them? Nowadays, social distance is an issue. Physical distance is a problem, it's a norm. So how do we reach out our target segments? Can we work with the fintech players? Or should we build our own MLPs? What do we need to do to enhance industry? Those are the things that this team in the speedboats are actually looking and do things quickly. What about from the wealth? As you know, the OPR was reduced 125 basis points. So our BIMAB investment stepped up and introduced the world's first Sharia sustainability robo-intelligence mobile app called Best Invest, helping to provide alternatives to investors. And last month, when our Malaysia Securities Commission launched the Wakaf Featured Fund Framework, a new framework to facilitate the offering of Islamic funds with Wakaf features, our wealth management crew worked doubly overtime to structure and figure out, can we actually introduce a unit trust fund, Wakaf fund, to enable the growth of the Islamic social finance segment as quickly as possible. As for the SMEs, we work on digital proposition for the SMEs and see how we can work together and come up with the ecosystem play, especially in the halal industry. So those are some of the things that we actually did. And all this under the watchful eye of the risks, our compliance, our Sharia Council, our cybersecurity teams, and of course the board, all deciding at the mothership while our speedboats go on and look for solutions.
I think it's extremely encouraging that Islamic financial institutions like yourself could be so agile in terms of trying to mobilize appropriate resources and come up with the right instruments to effectively address the challenge that we have. And it's time and time again we see Islamic social finance instruments being brought into the picture. I do want to go in deeper about the whole process of digitalization and sort of the process. But before that, I want to circle back to what Umar mentioned earlier when you were doing your sharing, is about the fact that, Islamic social instruments are not new, of course. And we are seeing a gradual take up now, but at the same time, it has not reached the kind of effectiveness that we would like. So really my question is, how effective have, Wakaf or Zakat, have they been mobilized, or what is sort of stopping, what is preventing it from, full adoption, from us really utilizing such instruments? And, Encik Yuzaidi or Dr. Darwin, Umar, if you could share your 2 cents on it.
Yeah, if I may add, it's to your point, Vinita, it is not so much it's what's stopping us. No, it's not that. It's more like we are not moving fast enough. So yes, there are instruments out there, but like what Dr. Dar was saying, how do you marry the new Islamic social finance instruments with the technology to actually cascade and propagate that instruments faster and to the target markets. So, for example, at Bank Islam, we actually, because of the COVID-19, we introduced this thing called the, similar to what Brother Omar was saying on the microfinance. And we looked at the underbanked and unbanked micro entrepreneurs. And we call it Bangkit. Bangkit is actually loosely translated as get up. So this facility helps the micro entrepreneurs to get up, to improve their financial well-being. So the program is not so much only to provide funds, but also it comes with a toolkit. So training, coaching, mentoring, financial management. It is the first microfinancing funded by a Sadaqah and donation program by an Islamic financial institution here in Malaysia. So in that sense, and the thing is, it is not offered to the public. Let's be honest. That's why we talked about collaboration, working with the experts. So we work with the change makers, people who actually have the wider reach, people who know what's going on the ground, people can actually show a strong social impact. So you partner with them, whether it's a women empowerment, whether it's students' youth, whether it's gig workers, social enterprises. So, and that's why we work together with them. So we are clear on what the criteria is. So it makes the funding cheap because there's no cost to it, and it's fast because we let the change makers scrutinize the borrower. And what's beautiful about this also, it creates a credit scoring for the borrowers. So when they are out of doldrums and ready to expand and grow its business further, not only locally, but abroad, Bank Islam will be ready to offer them the financial facility and support. So in that sense, we will grow together, not as customers, but as partners. So that's what we're looking at, how do we actually convert, how do we actually transition from a simple social finance into, a real instrument that will actually elevate, because we look at social mobility, right? How do we actually elevate our people from the B40 into M40s into T20s? So it's a journey. How do you help with that? So that's why I think working with financial technologies like ITs and the rest, even credit and the rest. This is where we can actually, like I said, we need to instill a culture, a fintech culture. How do we make the financial industry become passionate and intimate about fintech? So even if our Islamic scholars, our academicians, so when they think or when they talk about new instruments, how does that relate to fintech? So how can you make this combine together and come up with impactful instruments to the masses?
Encik Yuzaidi, on your point about us not moving fast enough, and about instilling this fintech culture within the Islamic finance fraternity, what then can we do? What then can this region collectively do? Moving towards that goal.
Okay, to me, okay, let's. Malaysia was the leader in Wave 1 in Islamic banking back in the 90s, right? So I think we are ready to lead the Wave 2 of Islamic finance. Adapting to the digital fintech world. Why? We are matured when it comes to Islamic finance environment. Our business environment is cost effective and conducive. We have readily available academicians, Islamic finance experts, and Sharia scholars. We got talents, whether it's fintech, whether it's Islamic finance. And I think our Islamic finance framework and structure is proven. And more importantly, our regulatory bodies are progressive. So if that, to me, we have the right ingredients to actually build a global Islamic fintech hub in this region. So together, then we can actually make this a regional effort in moving Islamic fintech across the region, and with RCEP coming into the picture, what more better reason for us to actually move into that direction?
We do have a few more minutes left before we wrap up our session. I would like to now invite each panelist to really share key takeaways. What's really needed for us to actually meet this goal of using Islamic social finance and digitalization, meeting SDG goals or all these social development projects.
The other angle that I'm looking at as well is, I think the pandemic has also allowed us, or given us the opportunity to not only revitalize the economy, but also we should also take the opportunity to reform the economy. What can we do to reform this economy? There's one quote that I remember from Professor Ha Jun Chang, UC Cambridge, economist. He said, countries become good at certain industries only because they decide as much, and not because they are destined to do so. So it's a question of how do we actually look at unrelated diversification and reach certain level of development for each of the country. So of course we cannot just do this alone. To be effective, we need to look at who's doing what in terms of, are they good and bad? Do we need to continue? Do we need to replicate? And who provides the best impact? As pointed out by all the panelists, we have to collaborate. That's the only way we can actually cast the net wider. So for us, if we do that and using fintech as our culture, then we can, inshallah, restart the Indian economy, especially in Islamic finance, digital.
Absolutely.